Hi everyone, welcome back. It's Janine here, and I'm going to use the enormous Orchid Rose stamp from the February 2022 card kit from Simon Says Stamp. This stamp, like I say, is enormous, and I have the Tim Holtz stamp platform that I'm falling more and more in love with. I had another little stamp platform which just really doesn't work very well for me, so I've kind of put it to one side. I've still got it, and I've temporarily adhered some Bristol Smooth cardstock to the inside of the platform. The stamp is so big that it's going to overhang, so that's why it's not in the corner of the platform, and apologies, you can't totally see that. And then I've gone over it with a anti-static powder tool, which this is the EK Success powder tool. I've had that thing for years. You can use corn flour as well, just dust off the excess kind of thing. That works too. And or a buddy, powder buddy, is that what they used to be called? And then I inked it with some Versamark, which is a clear sticky ink. It's kind of like a glue ink, if you like. It's very sticky. So I'm stamping it once and then inking and stamping again to get a nice impression on there. Obviously clear on white cardstock, you can't see that. And when I go to put my white embossing powder on, you won't see that much either. But this is one of my favorite things to do. I just don't have very much luck with the embossing powder. Now, this is the only white embossing powder I have. It's a Stampin' Up one. And I believe somebody commented somewhere along the line, or I saw it on someone else's page, that actually it goes off. So if your embossing powders aren't working quite to what they should be doing, it could be that they're just too old. So I gave this another go, and actually, touch wood, this one worked okay this time. But this being the only white embossing powder that I have, I did have some trouble beforehand. So in part, could be user error. Could be that it is just a little old. So I will try and get some new embossing powder and then see if there's a difference. But just thought I'd let you know. So I decided, because I don't have a lot of luck with it, I decided to use my heated up tool, which is a Tim Holtz Ranger heat gun. It looks exactly the same. It heats up very, very hot like the traditional heat gun, but it's slower. So the air that comes out of it is much slower, which is why it's good for drying things off as opposed to heat embossing. It will heat emboss, it just takes longer. So, but because it's a bit slower in the airflow department, I decided that was probably a good idea, because I don't have luck with my embossing for some reason. I've been doing this for years and I still struggle with it for some reason. But I love the white on white. And then when you paint over it, I love that effect. So I'm just finishing this up. Off camera, it would see. And just getting it completely melted. And you have to tilt in the light, because obviously white on white is a little more tricky to see. So hopefully I'll be able to show you. You can see it just shining there. And actually it worked really, really nicely. So the more I use my Bristol Smooth cardstock as well with other things, it's becoming very much a loved paper. A little more expensive, but it's very cool. I really, really love it. So what I decided to do now, I love my Zig's Clean Color Real brush markers, and I love the effect on Bristol Smooth. They work fabulously on there. But I am really looking forward to getting some Tombow markers at some point. And so I thought I'd start by using my Stampin' Up markers, because they're obviously a different marker, they're a different brand, but they are a similar kind of thing in the tip. So they're not a brush marker, but they're a dual tip marker. So I thought I'll give this a whirl, see how this goes. This did not work so well direct to paper, so you'll see in a bit I will change and just use my matte, which is my glass media matte, and I'll scribble the ink on and then pick it up with the brush. The second problem I had, because I kept going with it, I was not going to waste it. The second thing that I had was that every time I went direct to paper, it kind of stuck. So I then started putting the colour over the embossed line and then dragging it out with this water brush thing that I can never remember the name of. It's filled with water. So that was the third thing that started to annoy me about this card, was that these water brushes, I'm just better with the paintbrush and water. I've decided. I tried it on this card for the last time because it drove me mad. I couldn't get the water to flow nicely. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, if I'm doing anything wrong. It just was not working for me. So I decided that this was its last go. I will still keep them because maybe someday I'll give them another go, but I really struggled. So I decided that this was time out with these things. Get a good old paintbrush and water, easy. So I carried on, or started off with all the leaves, and I'm using, I've got 2 sets of the Stampin' Up in colours set. So the in colours come in packs of 5, and these, I can't remember off the top of my head what years these are, but this is Lemon Lime Twist. So it's the year that had that. I think it's 17 to 19 and then 18 to 20, if I'm correct in what I'm thinking. So those are 2 years of markers. So I have them in the same little tub in a drawer, and I decided to pick the green, which was the Lemon Lime Twist. It's my favorite green, so that's why I remember the name of it. And then I just picked some of the purples and the pinks from there. So the pink was, let me just have a look, powder pink. And then the 2 pinky purpley colours were Berry Burst and Fresh Fig. So actually, I think in the end, I only used the colours from the 2017 to 2019 set, from what I can see. So, and possibly, I may have used one other colour to do the background. But anyway, we'll get to that in a bit. So again, just adding a little bit of ink and then dragging it out with the water brush or a paintbrush and water, and just dragging it. And I know you can't see this very well. White affects my camera, as I've seen it on other videos as well. It just seems to freak it out. But like I say, I wasn't having very much luck direct to paper, so I decided to just pop it onto my glass mat there to the right hand side in those little blocks. That's kind of the idea behind that section of the mat. And picking up the ink. Obviously at the moment you can only see a little bit of that. You can barely see it on the mat itself. But there I'm just scribbling it on and then picking up with the water, and you'll start to see this come to life. Now, if I had, this is the problem I have with this brush thing. If I have a paintbrush and water, I feel like I can control the amount of water or liquid that I'm using, because you can use like a shimmery water or a shimmer spray kind of thing and make them all shimmery instead of just using plain water. But I feel like I have more control. So I felt like they were sort of, although you want some dark and light areas, and I was just doing very simple watercoloring here because I was frustrated with the brush and the initial technique didn't work for me. Yeah, it's okay, and I like how it turned out, but it wasn't quite the plan. And I just felt like I landed up dumping like a lot of intense colour in one place, and then there wasn't quite enough water in this brush, even though it's full of water to sort of, and didn't seem to let the water out enough so that I could just get that to flow. If I squeezed the thing, the idea is not to squeeze it, I believe, but when I squeezed it to get some water to flow, it seemed to then either not come out at all or gush out. So maybe I need a new pen. Maybe that's what it is. Anyway, so I decided the roses needed to be one of the sort of purpley pinky colours, and then I will do, and I think this is the Berry Burst. Then there are these tiny like little, I don't know how to describe them. They look like little, like there's a whole lot of little buds all together in like a clump. So those I did in the powder pink, so the really pale pink. And then the orchids I did in the Fresh Fig, which is the sort of more purpley pinky colour. And like I say, I really like how this turns out. I have super sped this up. I could probably speed it up a bit more for you guys, but I thought sometimes it's nice to watch painting, if you can call it this, because, you know, issues and all that. Anyway, so I'm just getting some more of that colour on, and I had to keep lifting this so that I could actually see where I was painting, because again, my eyesight is not so good anymore. So when I was doing this, and I don't know if you guys are the same, but I just couldn't, I love the effect, and I like I say, I do like how this eventually turned out, but I struggled to see it while I was doing it, so it's probably why I don't do it too often as well as the embossing palette thing. But anyway, so yeah, I just can't always see it, so I had to keep picking it up to tilt it and sort of work with it that way. And then I realized I'd missed a few of the stems and leaves and that, so I just went back in to do those. So some of them, like on the stems, I just sort of drew them straight in because I thought, well, they're so tiny, like the gap or the area that was left after the embossing was so small. So I just decided that I would you know, go direct to paper. But that was quite nice because it gave a little bit of a darker green without it being a different green. So these sort of darker and lighter areas of the green. So then what I did was I took the, I'm not even sure what that colour is, but a pale blue. I don't know if that is the blueberry bushel, which would be the other blue tone in the Stampin' Up inks, or whether that was just a completely different colour. I can't remember, I'm so sorry. But I took a blue that I could use as a pale blue, and watered it down quite a lot. I just wanted to have a hint of colour in the background, so it wasn't just so like floating in the air kind of thing. So it actually looked and would look like a finished piece. So I'm just very carefully and very quite easily going around the edges with that blue. Again, another one of these water brush things. So this one worked a bit better, I will admit, but it was also the first time I was using it, so maybe the other one's just clogged, I don't know. Anyway, enough about the water brushes. So there are areas where I feel like I need to go over it a little bit more, so I can go back to it once it dries off a little bit, and that also helps to give that sort of more watercolor look, which is really nice, and that's something I do really love. So I'm just going, like say, around all the areas, just around the outside of the embossed line. And that's the nice thing about the embossed line as well. The embossed line not only helps when you're colouring in or painting, say the orchid, it helps to almost create like a well where the paint or the watercolour will sit. So that helps to almost like push that ink into those areas. But when you're doing, say, an outline around the whole image, it also helps to keep it out of the bits that you've already coloured in. So you could do it the other way around as well if you're worried about, you know, accidentally getting a bit of blue into one of the leaves or flowers. You could do it the other way around and do your background first, let it dry, and then go in and do the rest of your flowers. I was just very careful. I wasn't going to give up, and I had worked on this for quite a while. I did actually, did I time this? I did time this. I think this took me about an hour, if I'm right. An hour? Maybe a bit longer than an hour to completely paint the whole thing. So even with my dodgy brush. So if I had something normal, maybe it would have been a bit quicker. But I think the idea too was that I was enjoying the process, and I think that's really important for me. I struggle with mental health. There are so many of us who do. And I think something like painting or colouring or that sort of thing, even if you don't make this into a card, and obviously if you're not making videos, you don't have to worry about this, but just sit and paint. It doesn't matter if it lands up on a card. It doesn't matter. Just put it in a box when it's dry, obviously, and just one day drag it out and go, oh yeah, I did that. Let's make a card out of it, or let's put it in a frame or whatever. So it doesn't have to be always for a card. If you want that, obviously do that. But if you need it as a bit of therapy, then that's what you should do with it. That's what art and card making and crafting has always been for me, is therapy. It's a form of escapism, not because I don't love my life, but there's a lot of horrible in the world, and it's just a good way to distract your mind for a few hours, and not even think about anything else. So some of the areas I missed completely, so I went back in and did those, and some of them I did feel like I could go a bit darker, so I went back and redid those, or went back in the areas that I'd missed completely because I kept finding them. So yeah, and it's coming together nicely. It looks really, really pretty. It's such a beautiful stamp though, but like I say, it's massive. So just a bit of cleanup now because I've done it, and a couple of spots that I missed again with the green. I think one of them I'd actually coloured it pink and it was supposed to be the stem of the rose. So now I'm using Lawn Fawn's largest of the large stitch rectangle die, and I just die cut around the image after it had completely dried. I also have a Berry Burst card base, A2 card base, and then I had some spare Berry Burst as it was. So I die cut the Miss You twice from that cardstock, and I'm going to layer this onto a vellum piece that I cut using the like shadow piece, shadow die. And so I'm just lining up both the misses. It just gives some extra bulk, but it's not what's the word, like you don't have to cut all these teeny tiny pieces of foam tape, because I just can't do things like that anymore. So this is a really nice way to add a little bit of height. You can go for 3 or 4 layers if you want to. I just did it twice. What you could also do, and what I should have done, I didn't think of this, is actually cut it 3 times, and then what I should have done is laid these 2, as I'm going to do it now, onto the vellum, and then the extra one I should have laid behind the vellum to give height at the back. Because again, vellum, you'll see any adhesive going through that, you'll see it. So as I'm sticking these on, I hope this makes sense, as I'm sticking these on the front, which is going to be my sentiment for the card, what I should have done is cut an extra Miss You, and then instead of sticking it to the front on top of, to add a 3rd layer to the Miss You, I should have put it on the back, again lining it up with the Miss You on the front, if that makes sense. And all it'll do is just give a little bit of height to between the vellum and the card, itself. So that's another way, and also then you can use that as a way to hide the adhesive so you don't see it through the vellum. Vellum's one of those tricky things to to put onto anything, so I think that would have been a better option. And the reason I say that is because you'll see in a minute when I actually get this stuck onto the card, the vellum just gets lost completely, and I was hoping it would just stand out a bit more, make the Miss You stand out. It doesn't, it just disappears. So what I should have done is, there's no other black on this card, so what I'm trying to say, a black shadow outline probably would have been a bit harsh because there's no other black on there. White could have worked just for a softer tone, or I could have used one of the other colours if I had spare, but something that's going to sort of tone on tone work with the Berry Burst colour, so this pinky colour that I've used. So I could have done that as well, or gold or silver, that would work too. So, but yeah, you'll see, it gets lost, and I'm like, oh, first time I've managed to do that, and it's, yeah, but it's fine. So I'm just getting my card front put on and just sticking it flat. Very easy, very simple, cute little card. And then for this, do you see it just disappears? So it's there, but it's not there. So just deciding where I want to put this, and I do decide to go in the bottom right hand corner. At the top left would have been nice too, but for some reason I was drawn to that corner, so that's where it goes. So for the vellum, to stick it down, I can go on the back of where the missu is and just add some adhesive there, and that will hold it to the card plenty. No need for anything extra, and that way it doesn't stick out of the vellum, because that's just nasty when you see that. It's not the end of the world, but it's one of those things that when you've seen it and you see that it looks not right, you'll know. So a couple of things I want to do just to finish it off when I get there. So just to add a little bit of something else to this, I'm going to use a sparkle pen, and I'm using a Nouveau one, strangely enough. I have a Nouveau and I have the Spectrum Noir ones. I love them both. They're such a beautiful shimmery thing. I love a Wink of Stella as well. So I'm just adding this very carefully to the tops of the sentiment. And then I'm also going to add some Nouveau Crystal Glaze, or do I use Glossy Accents? We'll see in a minute. My Glossy Accents always gets clogged. But I think I go with the Glossy Accents, yeah. And of course it's clogged again. I don't know how to get around this. It drives me mad. But we will unclog it. And I will put Glossy Accents. Now, Glossy Accents is, what's the word? It's thicker than the Nouveau Crystal Glaze, so it comes out thicker. It comes out slower than the Crystal Glaze, and because it's thicker, it's got more dimension when it dries. So it's not super like dimensional or anything, but it is more dimensional than the Crystal Glaze. So, but both are clear, so either one would work just fine for what I'm doing here, especially. And when this dries, this is like one of my favorite things. I've said this in so many videos. One of my favorite things is to have the shimmer underneath and then the clear glaze on top. It is just beautiful. Love it. And yes, definitely one of my favorite things. Now, obviously at the moment it's got this milky haze to it. That's okay. That's just while it dries. Don't mail it anywhere for at least 24 hours. Once it dries, it's beautiful. I love it. So you'll see that on my Instagram post and on the videos, because I will take the photo, on my blog, because you'll see the dried version of this. So check me out on socials. Follow me there if you wish. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit the notification bell here on YouTube. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye.